Alright, in this video we're going to talk about anabolism and catabolism, and these are both types of metabolic reactions. First, let's take a look at anabolism. So anabolism is going to be the building of complex molecules out of simple molecules. So we're going to take some simple molecules, we're going to add them together, and we're going to make a more complex molecule. And I like to remember that anabolism starts with AN right here, and ant starts with an. So anabolism and ants. And ants like to build things. So anabolism, or you could think of it as antabolism, is the building of complex molecules out of simple molecules. Catabolism, on the other hand, is the breaking down of complex molecules. We're taking these complex molecules, we're breaking them down into simple molecules, into their simple building blocks. And I remember that catabolism starts with the word cat, and cats can be very destructive. They like to tear things apart. So catabolism is the breaking down of complex molecules into the simple building blocks. So let's take a look at some example test questions. So you eat breakfast and your body begins breaking it down into its smaller building blocks. This is an example of what? So take a look at these answers. Go ahead and pause this video, see if you can figure it out on your own. Alright, so let's go through these answers together. So is this an example of respiration? Well, respiration is breathing. This is not an example of respiration. This is not going to be our correct answer. Is this an example of anabolism? Well, what is anabolism? Remember, anabolism is the building of complex molecules out of the smaller building blocks. But right here, we're breaking down. See, we have breaking down. Those are our key words here. So this is not going to be an example of anabolism, because that would be building of complex molecules out of simple molecules. Is this an example of a redox reaction? No, we're going to talk about redox reactions more in another video, but this is not an example of a redox reaction. Is this an example of catabolism? Well, what is catabolism? Remember, catabolism, think about that cats like to break things down. So catabolism is the breaking down of complex molecules into smaller molecules. So this is an example of catabolism. This is going to be our correct answer. Our body uses amino acids to build muscle. This is an example of what? Go ahead and pause the video, see if you can figure it out. Alright, is this an example of digestion? No, this is not an example of digestion. Is this an example of anabolism? Remember, anabolism, you say ants like to build things. Anabolism. So anabolism, remember, is the building of complex molecules from simple molecules. And here we have building muscle out of amino acids. So this sounds like an example of anabolism. But let's go ahead and read through all of our answers. Is this an example of a redox reaction? No, this is not an example of a redox reaction. Is this an example of catabolism? Remember, catabolism is the breaking down of complex molecules. But here we are building a more complex molecule. So this is not our correct answer. Anabolism is going to be our correct answer here. Alright, so you're on a diet and your body begins breaking down fat to make energy. This is an example of what? Let's go ahead and pause the video, see if you can figure out the answer. Is this an example of dieting? Well, we are on a diet here, but this is not a very scientific answer to the question. So we're going to go ahead and mark this one out. Is this an example of catabolism? Remember, catabolism, we are breaking things down. Cats like to tear things apart. And we can see right here in our question, it says you are breaking down fat to make energy. So this looks like it is an example of catabolism. This looks like it's going to be our correct answer. But as always, let's go ahead and read through all of our possibilities. So is this an example of anabolism? Remember, anabolism, we think about ants, and they like to build things. So are we building something here? No, we're breaking something down. So this is not going to be our correct answer. Is this an example of weight loss? Well, if you are breaking down fat, you are going to be losing weight, but this is not a very scientific answer for the question. Catabolism is going to be our most correct answer to this question.